My name is Miriam. I am 65 years old, and though the years have left their mark, they haven't taken away the desire that still burns inside me. Loneliness is an old companion, but like all old friends, it becomes tiresome. On days when the sun sets and the earth seems to sigh, I catch myself wondering what life would be like if time wasn't such an unforgiving enemy. It was a hot afternoon, and I sat on my porch, the mug of tea already lukewarm in my rough hands. The dry wind passed through the trees, but the heat still clung to the air, making everything feel almost tangible. That's when I saw him. First, the horse, its hooves rhythmically pounding the dirt road, stirring up a cloud of golden dust. And then him. Jake, a young cowboy, no older than 28, the kind of man who makes any woman forget her age. He rode in with such confidence, his back straight, his posture unyielding. I, at 65, knew he probably saw me as just another lonely, older woman. But there was something about him that made me feel alive again, like he didn't see me the way others did. There was something in his eyes that made my heart race, and I didn't know whether to run away or step closer. As he stopped at the fence of my property, dismounted with an ease that made my breath catch, his gaze locked with mine. For a moment, I forgot where I was, who I was, and everything else around me. His eyes, dark and intense, met mine with such a certainty that it felt like he already knew what I was thinking before I even knew. He smiled, and that smile, it wasn't just a smile. It was a promise, unspoken, but undeniable. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said, his voice low and rugged, the kind that makes the air seem charged, as if every word carries weight. "Good afternoon," I replied, my voice softer than I intended, a tremor betraying the surprise in my chest. I didn't know what he wanted from me, but the truth was, I couldn't look away. Something in his presence made the world slow down, and for a moment, I felt like I was much younger than my years. He introduced himself as Jake, and before long, he was asking about the farm, the crops I still tended to, the challenges of living in this unforgiving land. It seemed like a normal conversation, but there was nothing normal about the way he looked at me as he spoke. It felt like he was studying not just my life, but every wrinkle, every line of time etched into my face, as if searching for something deeper, something that had long been buried. And then, as though it was the next step in a plan he had already set in motion, Jake invited me to coffee in town. I knew what that meant. I knew I shouldn't go. He was too young for me, the gap too wide, and at 65, I shouldn't be looking for excitement or adventure. But he didn't give me a chance to think too long. His smile, his look, everything about him told me that I was about to live something unexpected. I accepted. And in that moment, the world seemed to stop. I, Miriam, a woman who had always been in control of her life, was now allowing him to lead me down an uncertain path. We went into town, and there, as we talked, something about his presence made me forget the years. For a moment, I felt young again, like time had given me a second chance. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just that. What Jake wanted from me wasn't simple. He wasn't interested just in a casual chat or a cup of coffee. He was after something more. I didn't know what yet, but I would soon find out. What started as a simple outing would turn into something that would change my life forever. And little did I know, he was going to take something much more valuable from me than money. He was going to take my trust. We drove into the small town, the dust from the road swirling around us like a ghost, clinging to the car as if it didn't want to let go of the memories we were making. I hadn't been to town in months. Living out here, away from people, meant that my trips to the small local shops and cafes were few and far between. But today, something felt different. I was with him, Jake, and for the first time in a long time, the world seemed to hold promise. As the car rolled to a stop in front of the coffee shop, Jake turned to me and smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that sent an unexpected warmth through my chest. "You're still sure you want to do this?" he asked, his voice light, though there was an edge to it that I couldn't quite place. I hesitated for a moment, my hand on the door handle. It was a simple question, but it felt like an invitation to something far more significant. "Yes," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. He gave me a look, almost like he was sizing me up, before getting out of the car and opening the door for me. His hand brushed against mine as I stepped out, and for a moment, it felt as though the world had stopped spinning. We walked into the cafe together, and the moment we crossed the threshold, I could feel all eyes on us. I didn't know what it was, whether it was the way Jake carried himself or the undeniable tension between us, but something about our presence seemed to fill the room, making everyone else fade into the background. I sat across from him at a small table by the window, the sun casting a soft glow on his face as he leaned in a little too close. The scent of fresh coffee and pastries hung in the air, and despite the peaceful setting, I felt my pulse quicken. "Tell me about you, Miriam," he said, his voice smooth, like velvet. "What's it like, living out here all alone?" His question was innocent enough, but I could feel the weight of it, the curiosity in his eyes. It wasn't just the small-town life he was interested in. It was me. The woman sitting across from him. The woman who had lived so many years without any real adventure, any real passion, and I knew it. "It's quiet," I replied, looking down at my hands, tracing the outline of the coffee cup in front of me. "The land doesn't demand much from you, but it takes everything. It's the only thing I've ever known. The silence can be lonely." He leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving mine. "Loneliness can be a beautiful thing," he said softly, almost like he was speaking to himself. "It teaches you things about yourself, things you never knew were there." I felt a shiver run down my spine at his words. There was something dangerous in them, something that spoke to parts of me I hadn't allowed myself to acknowledge in years. The attraction between us was undeniable, but I tried to push it aside, telling myself that it was just a fleeting moment, a passing fancy. But Jake wasn't the kind of man who let things pass. He leaned forward again, his breath warm against my skin as he lowered his voice. "You know, Miriam, it doesn't have to be just about the land. It doesn't have to be about silence. You don't have to be alone anymore." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I didn't know how to respond. My heart raced in my chest, and for the first time in a long time, I felt as though I was standing on the edge of something I didn't understand. The idea of being with him, of living outside the life I had built for myself, seemed impossible, and yet, I found myself wanting it, desiring it. I looked away, trying to steady my thoughts, but when I looked back at him, I saw something in his eyes that made it impossible to ignore. He wanted me. Not just for a moment, not just for a coffee date, but for something more. And the worst part was, I wanted him to. "Jake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not that woman anymore. I've lived my life, and I don't have anything left to give." He reached across the table, his hand gently brushing mine, sending a spark of electricity through my entire body. "Miriam," he said, his tone low and reassuring. "You have so much more to give. You just don't know it yet." His words were like a promise, a dare. And in that moment, I realized that I was already losing myself to him. The days that followed were a blur. I went back to my farm, but it felt different somehow. The quiet that used to comfort me now seemed oppressive, like the weight of everything I had left unsaid was bearing down on me. Jake's smile, his words, his touch, it all lingered in the back of my mind, taunting me. Every time the wind rustled through the trees or the sun set over the fields, I thought of him. I thought of his eyes, dark and intense, always watching me, always wanting something more. It was a dangerous thing, this attraction I had for him. He was younger, too young for me. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that he was someone I was supposed to meet at this point in my life. That maybe, after all these years of living a life of routine, of loneliness, I deserved something different. But I was also afraid. Afraid of how much I wanted him. Afraid of how much I was willing to risk. It was a Friday afternoon when I saw him again. He showed up at my door, unannounced, his presence as overwhelming as the heat of the summer sun. I had been in the barn, tending to the horses, when I saw him riding up the dirt road, his silhouette framed by the setting sun. For a moment, I hesitated. I almost convinced myself to turn away, to pretend I hadn't seen him. But then, the door creaked open, and there he was, standing in front of me, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "I thought I might find you here," he said, his voice a smooth drawl that sent a shiver down my spine. I forced a smile, my heart racing, though I tried to act like nothing was amiss. "Jake, what are you doing here?" He took a step closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "I thought you might want some company," he said, his voice dropping low, as if the words were meant for only me to hear. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted him to leave, but at the same time, I wanted him to stay. I could feel the pull between us, a magnetic force that I couldn't ignore. "I'm fine, really," I said, turning away to gather my thoughts. "I've got work to do." But he was already beside me, his hand gently resting on my arm. The warmth of his touch was electric, and I couldn't help but close my eyes for a moment, letting the sensation wash over me. "Miriam," he said, his voice so close now that I could feel the heat of his breath against my skin. "Don't push me away. Not now." The words hung in the air like an unspoken promise. I turned to face him, and before I could stop myself, I reached up and touched his chest. He caught my hand in his fingers wrapping around mine with a tenderness that belied the intensity in his gaze. "You don't know what you're doing to me," I whispered, my voice trembling. Jake's smile widened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. "Oh, I think I do," he said softly, pulling me a little closer. "You want this as much as I do, Miriam." His words were like a fire spreading through my veins, igniting something deep inside me that I had long ago buried. I wanted to fight it, to push him away, but I couldn't. Not anymore. I had lived a life of duty, of responsibility, but in this moment, I realized that I had been living without truly living. I closed my eyes again, surrendering to the feeling that had been building between us since that first meeting. His lips were warm against mine when they finally met, a soft kiss that sent a jolt of electricity through me. The taste of him was intoxicating, and before I knew it, my arms were around him, pulling him closer, as if I couldn't get enough. It wasn't just the kiss. It was everything: the way he made me feel alive, the way he made me feel seen in a way that no one had. In years, the world outside faded away, and for that one moment, there was only Jake and me. But I knew, even as I lost myself in him, that there would be a price. There always was. And when the truth came crashing down, when I realized the depth of my feelings for him, I would find myself standing at a crossroads. I could go back to my life, to the safety of the land, the routine I had known for so long. Or I could risk everything for the fire that Jake had ignited inside me. But one thing was certain: I had already crossed a line, and there was no turning back. I woke up the next morning with a strange sense of dread hanging over me, like a storm on the horizon that I couldn't quite see but could feel in the air. The sun was already high, casting a bright light across the fields, but the warmth of the day didn't touch me the way it usually did. I went about my morning routine, feeding the animals and checking the crops. But every thought, every movement, seemed to be haunted by the memory of last night. Jake, his touch, his words, the way he had kissed me, all felt like a dream. Something I could almost convince myself wasn't real, but it was real, and it was there, lodged deep inside me. The pull was stronger than anything I had felt in years, but so was the guilt. I had always been a woman of discipline, of duty, and I had prided myself on keeping my emotions in check. But with Jake, everything felt different. I couldn't help but wonder what he truly wanted from me. Did he see me as just another conquest, another notch on his belt, or was there something more? He had come into my life with the force of a storm, and now, I wasn't sure if I could weather it. I couldn't stop thinking about him, even as I tried to go about my day. Even as I walked through the dusty fields and tended to the animals, the heat of the afternoon sun made my skin itch, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. By late afternoon, I saw him again. This time, he didn't wait for me to notice him. He was already standing by the fence, his arms crossed over his chest, watching me with that same intensity. I didn't know what to say to him, but I felt my heart begin to race all over again as he approached me. "Miriam," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I can't stop thinking about you." There it was. The words that I had been afraid of hearing, but at the same time, something inside me wanted to hear. I looked at him, trying to find some semblance of the control I had always had, but it was slipping through my fingers like sand. "Jake, you need to stop this," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm not the woman you think I am." He didn't seem to care about my protests. Instead, he stepped closer, his presence enveloping me. "I don't care who you think you are, Miriam. All I care about is what I see when I look at you. You're everything I've been looking for, and I won't walk away from that." His words were like fire, lighting up something inside me that I didn't want to acknowledge, something that had been dormant for too long. My heart raced, and I felt myself drawn to him despite every warning, despite every voice telling me to run. I wanted him. There was no denying it, no pretending it wasn't true. "You're making a mistake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but it was too late. He kissed me again, his lips urgent, hungry, and I couldn't pull away. My hands went to his chest, pulling him closer, as if I couldn't get enough of him. The kiss was deeper this time, more desperate, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was truly alive. It wasn't just the physicality of it. It was the way he made me feel seen, like I was more than just the old woman who lived out here. With Jake, I was someone desirable, someone worth wanting. But even as my heart soared, there was a voice in the back of my mind, a whisper that warned me of the cost. I knew there would be consequences to this. I knew that once I allowed him into my world, there would be no going back. And yet, I couldn't stop myself. The pull between us was undeniable, and I was falling faster than I ever thought possible. When we finally broke apart, breathless, entangled in the moment, I looked up at him, my mind swirling with confusion and longing. "What now?" I whispered, my voice raw. He smiled, his eyes dark with promise. "Now," he said softly, "now we see where this goes. No turning back." And that was it. The moment I knew I had crossed a line that I couldn't uncross. I had allowed myself to want him, to need him, and once that door was open, there was no closing it. The storm had already begun, and I could only wait to see how it would end. The days after that kiss passed in a haze, each one blending into the next, like the endless horizon of the fields I worked so hard to tend. I couldn't focus. My mind was consumed with thoughts of him, of Jake, and the feelings that had awoken in me. It was like waking up from a long, dreamless sleep and suddenly feeling the rush of everything that had been buried for years. I tried to tell myself that it was just infatuation, that it would pass, but the truth was, it had taken root in me, deeper than I cared to admit. The guilt gnawed at me, too. I had lived my life by the rules, kept my heart locked away for so long that I didn't know how to handle this new, unfamiliar desire. I wasn't a young woman anymore, and Jake was a man. A cowboy with dreams and ambitions that were so far beyond this quiet life I had built for myself. But when he came by again, the pull was too strong to ignore. He appeared at my door, one late afternoon, his usual confident stride carrying him closer. I knew he would come, knew that he wouldn't leave me alone until he got what he wanted. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted the same thing. "Miriam," he said, his voice soft but filled with an urgency that made my heart race. "We can't keep pretending this isn't happening." I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. I had tried to push him away, tried to convince myself that this was a mistake, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I had already crossed a line, and there was no turning back. "Jake," I finally whispered, my voice shaking. "This isn't right. I'm not the woman you think I am. I'm too old for you. You have your whole life ahead of you." He stepped closer, his eyes intense, his gaze unwavering. "I don't care about age, Miriam," he said, his voice low and filled with desire. "I care about you, and I don't want to let you go. Not now, not ever." His words sank deep into my chest, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I had always prided myself on my independence, on my ability to stand strong on my own. But Jake made me question everything. He made me feel things I hadn't felt in years, things I had buried so deep inside of me that I thought I would never feel them again. I tried to resist. I tried to step back, to remind myself of who I was, but when his hand reached out, brushing against my cheek, I couldn't. His touch was electric, and every part of me, every fiber of my being, yearned for more. I closed my eyes, feeling the heat of his body near mine, and before I knew it, I was in his arms, the world fading away. His lips found mine again, this time with a hunger that matched the desire that burned inside me. It wasn't just a kiss, it was everything, the longing, the need, the connection that I couldn't explain. The weight of my past, the regrets and the mistakes, seemed to vanish in that moment, replaced by something raw, something that made me feel alive again. I lost myself in him, in the fire that he had lit inside me. And for once, I didn't care about the consequences. I didn't care about the past or the future. All that mattered was the now, the moment we shared. But as we pulled away, breathless and tangled in each other's arms, the reality of what I had done began to sink in. This wasn't just a fleeting affair, a summer romance that would fade with the seasons. This was something deeper, something that threatened to consume me. And I wasn't sure if I could handle it. "Jake," I whispered, my voice shaky, "I don't know if I can do this." He held me close, his lips pressing gently against my forehead. "I'm not asking you to do anything you don't want to do, Miriam," he said softly, "but I won't walk away. I can't." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I knew, in that moment, that I had made a choice, and there was no going back. I didn't know what the future held or what this relationship would cost me, but I knew one thing for sure: I was already in too deep. and I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to get out. The days blurred into each other, one indistinguishable from the next, as the tension between Jake and me grew stronger. I couldn't escape him. I couldn't escape the feeling that something deep inside of me had shifted in ways I didn't fully understand. Every time I saw him, every time I felt his touch, the walls I had built around myself started to crumble, piece by piece. The guilt, the doubt, and the longing clashed in my chest. And I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending that I had control over this situation. The truth was, I had already lost control the moment he walked into my life. But I couldn't help myself. I kept going back to him. There was something about Jake, something in the way he looked at me, the way he spoke to me, that made me feel like I mattered again. It had been so long since I felt that way. So long since anyone looked at me with that kind of hunger, that kind of desire, and I wanted it. I needed it. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon and the sky turned a deep shade of orange, I saw him again, standing by the fence, his posture as confident as always. My heart skipped a beat. Despite the warnings that echoed in my mind, I knew this wasn't good. I knew I shouldn't be doing this, but it didn't matter. "Miriam," he said, his voice soft but filled with an urgency that made my pulse race. "We need to talk." I nodded, though my stomach twisted at the seriousness in his tone. We'd been dancing around the truth for weeks now, but it was clear we couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. "Jake, I don't know what we're doing here," I said, my voice shaky, the words coming out before I could stop them. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine, as if looking for some sign that I was still the woman he wanted, that I hadn't pulled away completely. "You can, Miriam," he said, his voice low and full of conviction. "You can, because you want this as much as I do." I shook my head, stepping back from him, but he was already there, his hand on my arm, pulling me toward him. "You don't understand," I whispered, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. "This isn't just about us. There's too much at stake." "What do you mean?" His grip tightened slightly, but there was no anger in his touch. Only determination. "I've been living my life on my own terms, Jake," I said, my voice rising in frustration. "I've built this place, this life, on my own. I can't just throw it all away for a feeling that might not last. You're young, you have your whole life ahead of you. I can't. I can't be the one who holds you back." He was silent for a moment, his eyes never leaving mine. Then, in a voice so quiet, I could barely hear him, he said, "You're not holding me back, Miriam. You're what I want. You're what I've wanted for so long. Don't push me away just because you're afraid of what this could be." His words hit me like a ton of bricks, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. All I could do was stare at him, feeling the weight of everything he had said, the weight of everything we had shared. The desire, the connection, the undeniable pull between us, it was all real. I knew it was, and that terrified me more than anything else. "Jake," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. I don't know if I can keep living like this, pretending that everything is fine when I'm falling apart inside." He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek gently, and I closed my eyes, letting the sensation of his touch wash over me. "You're not falling apart, Miriam," he said softly. "You're just scared. Scared of what this means. Scared of what it could cost you, but you have to trust me. We can make this work. We can be together. If you just let yourself feel it." I opened my eyes to find him staring at me, his expression soft, his gaze full of something deeper than just desire. There was hope in his eyes. Hope that I couldn't seem to find in myself. The silence between us was heavy, and in that moment, I knew that everything was about to change. I had a choice to make, whether to hold on to the life I had known for so long, the safety and stability of it, or to take a leap of faith. To follow my heart and see where this wild thing with Jake could take me. It wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. There would be risks, sacrifices, and pain. But the question was, could I live the rest of my life wondering what might have been? Could I live without knowing what it felt like to truly be alive again? "I can't promise anything, Jake," I said, my voice trembling, but my heart pounding in my chest. "But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see where this goes." He smiled then, a slow, genuine smile that made my heart skip a beat. "That's all I'm asking for, Miriam. Just give me a chance." And just like that, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't expect it to happen so quickly, but it did. The shift in everything around me was so sudden, so overwhelming, that I had no time to prepare. After Jake's confession, the weight of his words hung in the air between us, like a fragile thread connecting us that could snap at any moment. But still, I gave in. I let myself be pulled toward him, toward the unknown. And I allowed myself to believe in something that I had long ago given up on, the possibility of more. Of something real, and it felt right. For a while, it felt right. We spent the next few weeks wrapped in each other's presence, stealing moments when we could. The days were filled with stolen kisses, quiet walks in the fields, the sound of Jake's voice filling the empty spaces of my life. I couldn't help but fall deeper for him. But there was a nagging thought that crept into my mind during the quiet moments, during the nights when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. What was he really after? Was this just a fling for him? A brief escape from the life he was building? Was I just a way for him to pass the time, or did he truly care for me? There were times when he looked at me with such intensity that I could feel the weight of his gaze on my skin, as if he could see straight into my soul. And there were times when I wondered if he could, but the doubts lingered. The doubt that, at the end of it all, I would be left alone, just like I had been before. The thought terrified me, but it didn't stop me from wanting him. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the land, I found myself standing at the edge of the porch, staring out into the fields. The sky was ablaze with the colors of the sunset, but my mind was elsewhere. Lost in the whirlwind of emotions I couldn't control, I heard the sound of hooves on the dirt road before I saw him, and as always, my heart skipped a beat. Jake. He pulled up on his horse, his silhouette framed by the dying light. He dismounted, his movements fluid, as though he had always belonged here, as if nothing in the world mattered except for us. "Miriam," he said, his voice low, almost tender, "we need to talk." I turned to face him, my heart pounding. I had a sinking feeling, a sense that something was about to change. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on mine. "I've been thinking," he began, and I could hear the tension in his voice. "I don't want to hurt you. But I don't know how to make this work. We come from two different worlds, Miriam. You've lived your whole life here, in this place. And I've been out there, chasing something bigger than just the land, than just this." His words hit me like a slap in the face, and for a moment, I felt the ground slip out from under me. I knew what he was saying. He was starting to question everything we had built between us. "Jake," I said, my voice tight. "Don't do this. I don't want to lose you." He took a step forward, his hand brushing against my arm in a gesture that was both tender and hesitant. "I don't want to lose you either, Miriam," he said softly. "But I don't know if I can be what you need. I don't know if I can give you what you want." His words stung, and for the first time in all this time, I felt the distance between us. The truth, the unspoken reality of our differences, was staring us both in the face. I had spent my life building this place, this life that was mine, and Jake had his own dreams, his own ambitions that were bigger than the life I had here. He was young, free, and filled with possibility. And I was old, tethered to the earth, to the land that had shaped me, that had kept me alive through all these years. There was no way to reconcile that. There was no way to make both of our worlds fit together. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I felt the weight of it, the heaviness of the decision that was already being made. "Jake," I whispered, my voice breaking, "I can't lose you, but I can't change who I am. I can't be someone I'm not." He nodded slowly, his eyes darkening. "I know, and I think that's what's going to tear us apart." My chest tightened, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to tell him that we could figure it out, that we could make it work, but the truth was, deep down, I knew we couldn't. We were two people from completely different worlds, and no matter how badly we wanted it to be otherwise, that fact was undeniable. The silence between us grew heavier, more suffocating, until finally, Jake spoke again, his voice soft and resigned. "Maybe we're not meant to be, Miriam. Maybe this was just a moment, a fleeting thing." I looked at him, my heart breaking with every word he spoke. "I don't want it to be over," I whispered. "I don't know if I can live with the thought of it being over." He reached out, brushing a lock of hair from my face, his touch gentle but distant. "I don't want it to end either," he said. "But sometimes, things just don't work out. No matter how hard we try." And with that, the weight of everything that had been building between us crashed down on me, and I knew, deep inside, that we were reaching the point of no return. And there was nothing either of us could do to stop it. The days that followed felt like I was walking through a fog, unable to grasp anything with clarity. Unable to fully escape the weight of the decision I had to make. Jake was still here, still in my life, but the distance between us had grown, unspoken but palpable. We went through the motions, talking when necessary, but the chemistry we once had, so intense and alive, had dimmed, replaced by a quiet tension that hung in the air. I could feel it in the way he looked at me, like he was trying to figure out whether I was the woman he had fallen for or someone he no longer recognized. And I, too, had changed. I had tried to keep the walls up, but my heart kept tearing itself open every time I saw him. And every moment we shared felt like it was being weighed against the future I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. I still didn't know if I could trust him completely. The fear of losing everything, of giving myself up for something I wasn't sure would last, was a constant battle in my chest. And it was that fear that kept me awake late into the night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made the right choice. The truth was, I didn't know anymore. There was too much at stake. And yet, I couldn't let him go. One afternoon, I was out in the barn, tending to the horses, when I heard the sound of a truck pulling up. I didn't have to look up to know. It was Jake. I didn't even know why I still cared. But the sound of his footsteps on the dirt floor of the barn made my heart skip a beat. "Miriam," he said, his voice low, hesitant, as if he was afraid of what my response would be. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The words were stuck in my throat, the ache in my chest preventing me from finding the courage to speak. "We need to talk," he continued, stepping closer, his presence almost overwhelming. The air felt thick with unsaid words, with everything we had both been avoiding. "Jake," I finally whispered, my voice trembling. "What is it that you want from me?" He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, as though trying to read me, to understand what I was feeling. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. "I want you," he said softly, his voice full of urgency. "I've always wanted you. I know you're scared. I know you're afraid of what this could be, what it could cost you, but I'm not going anywhere, Miriam. I'm not going to walk away from you. Not now, not ever." His words broke through the walls I had built around my heart, and for a moment, I felt everything inside of me unravel. I had been pushing him away for so long, afraid of the hurt, afraid of the truth, but standing here in front of me was Jake, a man who wasn't afraid of anything, and certainly not of me. He had already given himself to me, but I hadn't done the same. I had held back, thinking that if I kept my distance, I would somehow protect myself from the inevitable heartbreak. But the truth was, I was already in too deep. I had already given him my heart without even realizing it. And now, there was no turning back. "Jake," I whispered again, my voice breaking. I'm afraid of what you're asking of me. I don't know if I can be the woman you want. I don't know if I'm strong enough to live up to your expectations." He reached out and cupped my face in his hands, his touch tender and gentle, as though he could sense the fragility in me. "You don't have to be anything but yourself, Miriam," he said softly, his forehead resting against mine. "That's what I want. I want the real you, the woman who's been living on this land, the woman who's lived through so much and still stands strong. You don't need to be anything else." His words were like a balm to my soul, soothing the parts of me that had been broken and neglected for so long. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about love. It wasn't just about the longing or the attraction that had burned between us since the first time we met. This was about trust. And trust was something I had never truly given to anyone before. But I could give it to him. I could give it to Jake. "I'm scared," I said, my voice barely audible. "I'm scared of losing everything." He smiled, a soft reassuring smile that made my heart flutter. "I'm not going to let you lose anything," he said, his thumb gently brushing against my cheek. "You won't lose me. And you won't lose yourself. Not as long as we're together." For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of calm settle over me, like I had finally made peace with the storm inside my chest. It wasn't going to be easy, and I wasn't sure what the future would hold. But for the first time, I felt like I was ready to face it, together. The weeks after that moment with Jake felt like a whirlwind, like I was caught in something I couldn't control, no matter how hard I tried to hold on. I had finally allowed myself to believe in what we had, to open my heart and trust him in a way I hadn't trusted anyone in years, and for a while, it was enough. We spent our days together, our stolen moments becoming the highlight of my existence, but with each passing day, the reality of our differences, the things we could never reconcile, began to creep back into my mind, like a shadow that wouldn't let me forget. I had told myself that I was ready for this, ready for a life outside of the comfort of my farm, but as the days stretched on, I realized how much I had to lose. Jake had dreams, big dreams. He didn't belong here, in this small world I had built, a world that had become as much a part of me as the blood in my veins, and the thought of losing him, of him walking away from me, filled me with a terror I couldn't explain. I had never allowed myself to get too close to anyone. I had built this life alone, not by choice, but by necessity. But Jake had come into my life with the force of a storm, and I couldn't seem to fight it anymore. One evening, as the sun began to set, I stood by the fence, staring out at the fields, lost in my thoughts. The wind was picking up, swirling the dust around my feet, and I felt the familiar tug of uncertainty deep in my chest. I knew Jake was coming. I always knew when he was near, like the pull of a magnet that I couldn't escape. He was there before I could even turn around, his footsteps light but purposeful. "Miriam," he said softly, his voice carrying over the wind. "Can we talk?" I nodded, my heart racing, and without a word, I turned to face him. He had been acting distant the past few days, almost like he was trying to prepare himself for something, and I knew, deep down, that the moment I had been avoiding was finally here. "What is it, Jake?" I asked, my voice steady, though I could feel the anxiety building in my chest. He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine for something, anything that would tell him I was still the same woman he had fallen for. But I wasn't. Not anymore. Not after everything that had happened. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice low, as if he were choosing his words carefully. "About what you said. About us. And I don't want to keep dragging this out, Miriam. I can't keep living in this limbo, unsure of what comes next. We're both at a crossroads, and I think we both know it." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had been avoiding the truth for so long, but now it was staring me right in the face. The reality of our situation, the fact that we were two people from completely different worlds, had never been more apparent. "Jake," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I don't want to lose you. But I can't keep pretending that everything is fine. I can't keep pretending that I'm the woman you need." He reached out, his hand gently touching my cheek, his thumb brushing away the tears that had fallen without me realizing. "Miriam," he said, his voice filled with a sadness I hadn't expected. "I don't want to lose you either. But I'm starting to realize that maybe we're fighting against something we can't change." I felt a lump form in my throat, my chest tight with the weight of everything we had shared. "I don't know how much more I can give, Jake," I whispered. "I've given you everything I have, but I'm scared. I'm scared of losing everything." He pulled me into his arms then, holding me tightly, as if he could protect me from the storm inside of me. "I'm scared too, Miriam," he said softly. "I'm scared of what we could lose. But I'm not ready to walk away from this, from you." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and for a moment, I thought I could hear the world around us fall silent. The wind, the rustling of the trees, the birds that had been singing earlier, all of it faded away, leaving just Jake and me standing there, holding on to each other as if our lives depended on it. "I don't know what's going to happen," I whispered, my voice raw. "I don't know if we can make it work." He pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes, his expression fierce but tender. "We don't have to know, Miriam," he said, his voice steady now. "All we have to do is take it one step at a time, together." And in that moment, I knew that no matter what happened, no matter where life took us, I had made my choice. The future was uncertain, and the road ahead was full of risks, but I wasn't going to face it alone anymore. And neither was he. We had found something in each other that was worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The days that followed were slow, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace settle within me. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't know what the future held, but we had each other. And that was more than I ever thought I'd have at this point in my life. Every day, we took small steps forward, letting go of the weight of the past and allowing ourselves to find something new, something worth fighting for. Jake had told me we didn't need to know the answers, that we just had to take it one step at a time. And for once, I let go of my fear and followed his lead. I had spent so many years living for the future, planning for what was next, trying to protect myself from the pain that life inevitably brought. But now, I was learning to live in the moment. I was learning that sometimes, you don't have to have everything figured out to be happy. Sometimes, you just have to trust, to take the leap, and let life unfold as it will. Jake and I spent the next few months together, working side by side, sharing everything we could. We built something beautiful, something real, out of the ruins of our pasts. The land, once a place that only reminded me of loneliness, began to feel different. It became ours, a shared space where we could create something new, together. There were challenges, of course. There were moments when the weight of our differences threatened to pull us apart. But through it all, we never stopped fighting for each other. We never stopped believing that what we had was worth the struggle. And it was. In the end, it was worth every ounce of pain, every moment of doubt. One evening, as the sun began to dip low in the sky, casting the world in golden hues, Jake took my hand and led me to the edge of the field. We stood there, side by side, watching the colors change in the sky as the day gave way to night. There was something so peaceful about it, something so right. I had lived my entire life on this land, and for the first time, I realized it wasn't just the land that had kept me here. It was the people. It was the love that could grow in the most unexpected places, even when you least expected it. Miriam, Jake said, his voice soft but steady. I know we've been through a lot. And I know there are still things we have to figure out. But I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, and I'm staying. I looked at him, my heart swelling with love and gratitude. I don't know if I deserve this, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I don't know if I deserve you. He smiled, a smile that reached his eyes, and his thumb gently brushed across my cheek. You deserve everything, Miriam, he said, his voice filled with certainty. You deserve all the love and happiness this world has to offer. For the first time in my life, I truly believed it. I believed in us. I believed in what we could create together. And as we stood there, under the vast, open sky, I knew that I had made the right choice. I had chosen love, I had chosen trust, and most of all, I had chosen to live. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, no matter how many obstacles we would face them together. That was all that mattered. As the stars began to twinkle above us, I felt a quiet sense of peace settle in my heart. The road had been long, and the journey wasn't over, but I had everything I needed now. Jake had become my home, my anchor in a world that was constantly changing. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need to look ahead to know that everything would be okay. It was already enough.